Welcome to our deep dive into yoga and mental health. Seems like a lot of you are really interested in how yoga can help your mental well-being specifically, and lucky for you, we've got just the guide. It's called Yoga for Mental Health. Transform your mind through practice, and honestly, I'm already hooked just from skimming through the excerpts. The way they combine personal stories with scientific insights is really cool. One of the first things that grabbed my attention was how they mix modern research with ancient wisdom. Like, I always knew yoga was good for relaxing, but this guide mentions a Harvard study that showed regular yoga practice actually makes the hippocampus grow. That's the part of your brain that handles memory and keeps your emotions in check. So that feeling of calm and happiness after a good session, it's not just in our heads, there's actual science behind it.
Yeah, totally. It's really interesting how the guide doesn't just cover the basics. It really digs into why yoga is so good for your mental health. It's not just about relaxing. It's like you're actually rewiring your brain to be more resilient. They even mentioned this study from UC Berkeley, where they followed people for 8 weeks. And the ones who practiced yoga regularly had way lower cortisol levels, the stress hormone. So
It's not just a feeling, there's like actual proof that yoga helps us manage stress. I'm curious, does the guide go into any specific poses that are especially good for stress reduction?
it does. They actually highlight a bunch of poses that are known to help calm down your nervous system, like child's pose, for example. It's not just about stretching. It actually triggers something called the relaxation response by slowing down your breathing and lowering your heart rate. And that's what gives you that feeling of peace and being grounded.
Child pose has always been one of my go-tos, but I never really thought about the science behind it. Makes you wonder if there's a reason why certain poses have been around for centuries. Speaking of history, I know the guide talks about the history of yoga. What are some of the main takeaways there?
Well, the guide does a fantastic job of tracing yoga all the way back to ancient texts, like the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, which emphasizes mental clarity and self-regulation. Those are like core parts of the practice. Yoga is not just some new fitness trend. It's a practice that's been helping people manage their inner world for thousands of years. And what's really cool is that modern science is now backing up those ancient principles.
They talk about setting an intention before starting a practice. Do you think that's just a feel-good ritual, or is there more to it?
I think there's definitely more to it than just being a nice idea. The guide even brings up a study from UPenn that found that setting an intention before doing something can actually make you focus better and get better results. So even if it's something as simple as wanting to feel calm or be more grateful, it seems like consciously directing your energy towards a specific goal can really make a difference.
That's fascinating. It's not just about the poses, it's about your mindset, too. Now, I know this guide goes beyond the basics, but you're probably ready to get into some specific techniques for improving mental well-being, right?
Yeah. Oh, for sure. But before we jump into the poses and techniques, I think we got to talk about the foundation of any good yoga practice, which is setting up the right environment for yourself.
Okay, I have to admit, sometimes I'm guilty of squeezing in a yoga session wherever I can. Is that really that bad?
Well, think about it this way. If you're always surrounded by clutter and distractions, your mind's probably going to be just as cluttered and distracted, right? The guide really emphasizes how important it is to create a space that feels calm and inviting, like a space that's free from anything that might pull you away from the present moment. This could be as simple as dimming the lights, lighting a candle, or even just clearing out a dedicated spot in your house.
I can see the value in that. It's like creating a little sanctuary for your mind to unwind and recharge. Speaking of recharging, I know the guide mentions some pretty interesting breathing exercises. What are some of the highlights there?
There's one technique that really stands out called alternate nostril breathing, or Nadi Shodhana. It's a super simple but powerful technique where you just breathe through each nostril one at a time. And the guide explains that it helps to balance your nervous system and makes you feel more calm and focused. And the best part is you can do it anywhere, anytime. They even suggest doing it during your work breaks to de-stress.
I've heard of alternate nostril breathing before, but never actually tried it. Maybe we could try it together later. I'm really curious to see what it's like.
Absolutely. I'd love to walk you through it. The guide actually has a few variations depending on what you're trying to do. Like there's one for energizing in the morning and one for calming down before bed.
That's amazing. It's like having your own personalized toolkit for managing your energy and mood throughout the day. I know we could go on and on about all the different techniques and poses. Where should we go from here?
So from breathing exercises, it's kind of natural to move on to meditation. It's another really powerful tool for boosting your mental well-being. Actually, the guide has a whole section on different types of meditation. and how you could fit them into your daily life.
I gotta be honest, meditation is something I've always struggled with. My mind just won't stop racing.
Yeah.
Is there a specific technique that might help someone like me?
There's this one technique they talk about called body scan meditation. It might be a good place for you to start. It's basically bringing your attention to different parts of your body, like one by one, and just noticing any sensations you feel without judging them. The guide says that this helps you become more aware of your physical self, which can be really grounding, especially when your mind's all over the place.
That sounds interesting. I can see how tuning into your body could help bring you back to the present moment. Do they mention any research on the benefits of body scan meditation specifically?
They do. They actually mention a study that was published in the journal Mindfulness, and it found that body scan meditation was really effective in reducing anxiety and improving mood. It seems like when you shift your focus away from all those racing thoughts and onto physical sensations, you can actually create a sense of calm and presence.
So it's not about emptying your mind, it's about redirecting your attention. That makes a lot more sense to me. Now, a lot of people think of yoga as a way to de-stress, but can it actually make you more resilient over time?
That's a great question. And it's something the guide dives deep into. It's not just about feeling good in the moment, it's about building up your mental strength so you can deal with challenges better. They actually compare it to building a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger your resilience gets.
I love that analogy. How does that actually work, though? What's going on in our brains and bodies that makes us more resilient?
Well, for one thing, the physical practice of yoga itself helps to regulate your nervous system. Think about it when you're holding a challenging pose. You have to learn to control your breath and stay present even when things feel uncomfortable. And the guide explains that this whole process of regulating your response to physical discomfort, it actually helps you regulate your emotions better too.
So it's like you're training your nervous system to stay calm under pressure. Makes sense. But what about those deeper emotional challenges? Can yoga really help with things like anxiety and depression?
Absolutely. Actually, there's a ton of research now that shows that yoga can be super beneficial for people who are struggling with those conditions. The guide even highlights a bunch of studies that found that yoga can be just as effective as medication in reducing symptoms of anxiety and depression, at least in some cases.
That's amazing. But yoga can be kind of intimidating, especially if you're already dealing with emotional challenges. Is there a specific approach that might be easier for someone in that situation?
Yeah, you're right. You got to honor where you're at and not push yourself too hard. The guide talks about something called therapeutic yoga. It's a gentler approach where you use props and modifications to make the poses more accessible and comfortable. It's really about creating a sense of safety and support so you can explore the practice at your own pace.
So it's about meeting yourself where you are, both physically and emotionally? Do they mention any specific poses or techniques that are especially helpful for people dealing with anxiety or depression?
Yeah, they do. For anxiety, they talk about poses like supported back bends, which can help open up your chest and create a sense of spaciousness, both physically and emotionally. They explain that this can be really freeing when you're feeling constricted by anxious thoughts. And for depression, they recommend poses like legs up the wall, which can be super calming and grounding.
I love legs up the wall. It's so relaxing. It's like giving your nervous system a big sigh of relief.
Yeah.
I know you can't diagnose or treat mental health conditions or anything, but do they talk about how someone might incorporate yoga into their overall treatment plan?
They definitely emphasize working with a qualified healthcare professional for any mental health concerns. Yoga is a great complementary practice, but it's not a substitute for professional help when you need it. What they do suggest is talking to your doctor or therapist about adding yoga into your treatment plan.
That's a good point. It's about finding what works best for you and creating a holistic approach to your well-being. Now, before we wrap up, there's one thing I'm really curious about. How do you actually create a personalized yoga routine? It can feel overwhelming with so many different styles and techniques out there.
That's where this guide really shines. They actually give you a framework for creating a practice that fits your own needs and goals. It all starts with asking yourself, what am I hoping to get out of my yoga practice?
So it's about being clear on your intention, like we talked about earlier. But then what? How do you actually turn that intention into a real practice?
They suggest exploring all the different things we've been talking about, like the poses, the breathing exercises, the meditation techniques. Try them out and see what really clicks with you. Maybe you find that holding a strong warrior pose makes you feel more empowered. Or maybe a few minutes of alternate nostril breathing helps you focus and calm down.
It's like you're building your own personalized mental well-being toolkit with the practices that work best for you. Do they have any recommendations for how often to practice or how long each session should be?
One thing I really like about this guide is that they emphasize being flexible and finding what works best for you personally. They encourage you to start small and gradually build up your practice. Even just 10 minutes a day can make a big difference. They even quote a study from the University of Wisconsin that found that even short bursts of yoga throughout the week can really improve your mood and lower stress levels.
So you don't have to force yourself into an hour-long class every day. It's more about finding a rhythm that fits your life and that you can actually stick with. That's really encouraging. Anything else in the guide that really jumped out at you?
As we've been talking about all these techniques and benefits, it's made me realize that yoga is more than just a way to manage mental health challenges. It's really a path to feeling a deeper sense of well-being and even joy.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's not just about fixing what's wrong, it's about nurturing what's already good.
Exactly. And I think that's something worth thinking about as you start your own yoga journey. How can you use this practice not just to feel less stressed and anxious, but to actually cultivate a sense of inner peace and contentment that spills over into all parts of your life?
That's such an inspiring thought. So to all our listeners out there, I really encourage you to approach your yoga practice with curiosity and an open mind and see where it takes you.
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination. Some days your practice will feel easy and joyful, and other days it'll be more challenging. Just be kind to yourself and remember that even small steps, taken consistently, can lead to big changes.
Well said. Thanks for joining me on this deep dive. It's been really insightful.
My pleasure. Until next time, may you find peace, strength, and joy both on and off the mat.